Well, good afternoon. The first thing I want to say is thank God that Republicans have the majority in the Senate. As you think about the governor's plan and where he's going and what we're trying to do, in some ways they're opposite. And so, but the questions that I ask are, does this plan bring hope and unity or more division among Minnesotans based on money? Does this plan help small businesses recover from the Walz shutdowns? Does this plan do anything to get kids back in school, in the classrooms, or address the failing schools in Minneapolis and St. Paul? Does this plan do anything to speed up getting vaccines out so that Minnesotans can get back to living safely in Minnesota? And I would say the answer to all of those is no. It doesn't focus on any of the things that I think Minnesota cares about. So what are Minnesotans' priorities? Well, the first one, and this is our focus, is getting Minnesotans back on track. We want Minnesota to be affordable to everybody in Minnesota. And so one of the things that we said, and we will continue to say, is we're not going to raise taxes on anyone. And if you look at this budget that the governor's proposed, there's a lot of taxes on a lot of people. And when we look at the budget, we say we can balance the budget, which is our responsibility, and we will work with the governor and we will work with the House to balance the budget, but we have reserves. And I've talked to both the Speaker and the Minority Leader of the Senate, and I believe I've heard the governor say it too, but reserves were meant for a rainy day. And I've heard this multiple times from many people on the other side of the aisle. They would say, and it's raining. And so we have this opportunity, because we've built up the reserves for a rainy day, that we actually can use them to balance the budget. And so we think that we should be reducing spending all the way back to last April, when we knew that COVID would bring an economic crisis to Minnesota. We said that the governor should be reducing spending 5% or some number per agency, like other states had did, but he chose not to do that. And we are going to propose that we reduce spending now to help close the gap there. But if for some reason we can't do that, we still have the reserves and the resources we need to close that gap. And so we do not need to raise taxes on anyone, and that's just, it's just a line in the sand that we've drawn. The second thing that we're going to focus on that we know Minnesota cares about, and that's getting the vaccine out as fast as we can, particularly to people over 65. We are united to work with the governor to make sure that we do that. And I've heard him say a number of times that I don't think the virus is serious. I have never said that the virus is not serious. I've said we need to focus on people over 70, and that's where this vaccine is focused right now. And so in that regard, we're united. But the virus has always been serious. We have to focus on making sure we get the vaccine out to the people that need it. When we do that, I hope that even the governor will open up the state, because people are going to feel safe. They're going to be able to get out there and do their job. And I'm also hoping, or hope that he will open up the schools, that kids will be back in the classroom. We have said that we think that kids should be back in the classroom, just like parochial schools have been doing from the beginning, just like other states have been doing. We think kids need to be in the classroom, that's absolutely essential. That's what our focus should be on. And the other thing related to education that we know that we need to focus on is, particularly Minneapolis and St. Paul has too many failing schools and kids not doing well in those schools. And we need to find a way to provide more opportunities for them. We know that those are the things that Minnesota cares about. Let's get back on track. We don't need to raise taxes. We need to get the vaccine out. We need to get kids back in school. We need to get kids in sports without masks. Simple, basic things that we believe we can stick to and actually get Minnesota back on track. And so we're going to work with the governor. We're going to work with the House. I will tell you the majorities and the minorities, I believe, will work together to get a product done. But we're going to send out some boundaries, and one of them is we don't need to raise taxes to do it, and we need to focus on the fundamentals, not some of these other things that in a session where it's almost impossible to navigate. We're not going to do a lot of new policy things. We're going to make sure we take care of the basics.
Good Good afternoon, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to share our ideas with you and our reaction to the governor's budget. Obviously, this budget is something that's a requirement to the governor to present a budget. He did not include the legislature in preparing this. I did not research this, but I doubt that you would disagree with me. I don't think in the history of this state ever has a legislature just rubber stamped a governor's budget. So there's great talking points and a good place to start, but thankfully this budget will not be the budget that Minnesotans, that we will pass into law and that will affect Minnesotans, and for good reason. In my 10 years in the legislature, I have, well, let me back up. First thing I want to say is I have made a commitment. I spoke with the governor today, as did Senator Gazelka. I am committed to rolling up my sleeves and helping in any way that I can make the decisions, and sometimes those will probably be tough decisions to do what's right for this state as we move forward, and to be helpful and use the expertise that I bring to the table in putting together a state budget. And he has my commitment, and Minnesota has my commitment that I will do that. Now, that being said, the nicer, friendlier Kurt that I have promised still is going to hold people accountable. And when you put out ideas, I'm certainly going to let you know where I disagree with those ideas. This budget really, I think, has some major flaws, and it's not a new thing. In my 10 years in the legislature, I have seen Democrats say one thing and do another time and time and time again. And we've heard Democrats say that they're just going to tax wealthy people when in turn most of their tax increases hit low-income Minnesotans disproportionately. And frankly, right now, at a time when we're recovering from this recession caused by the pandemic and the governor's response to the pandemic, what we need is strong economic growth. We have to grow our way out of this recession. There is no other way. And unfortunately, all of the things that the governor's putting in place will hinder economic growth in the state of Minnesota. You know, I have seen Democrats say that they want to tax the wealthy while at the same time proposing tax increases on gas taxes, which disproportionately affect low-income Minnesotans. In this proposal, again, we have cigarette and vaping taxes. Those are hugely regressive taxes. In the last biennium, the governor increased taxes on every Minnesotan's health care. That's a hugely regressive tax. I think, thankfully, we have Republicans who can step in the way and say, no, we're not going to let the governor tax the people in this state that are hurting the most. It's just not fair for those Minnesotans. You know, I think we also heard the governor last year say that, you know, make a big deal out of hiring freezes, and that he was going to do what was necessary to put the savings in place that he knew we needed in our state budget. So the governor implemented a hiring freeze, made a big deal out of press conferences, the whole works. Unfortunately, today, and last year I actually tried to codify the savings, and when I reached out to MMB to find out how much those savings were and how much we could get a fiscal note to show so that we could codify those and use those for COVID relief, they couldn't come up with $1 of savings. And today, based on the governor's hiring freeze, there are more employees working for the state of Minnesota today than there were before his hiring freeze. So that's how effective that policy was. And unfortunately, that's an example of a governor saying one thing and doing another. The governor put in place pay freezes or pay reductions actually for his commissioners. Made a big deal out of those pay reductions, but very quietly rescinded the executive order to reinstate their full pay. And that's not the sort of thing, we need to govern for good policy, not for good politics. And our governing shouldn't be about press conferences. It should be doing about doing what's right for the state of Minnesota. This proposal, about 2/3 of the taxes in this proposal will hit disproportionately low-income Minnesotans. And that is exactly the wrong thing to do at the wrong time. In addition to that, there's a lot of taxes on the people who we need to be successful right now, and those are job creators. Those are corporations. We heard him say in his press conference that he wants to tax the profitable companies. That's a very basic understanding of the way taxes work. We actually do tax profits. But unfortunately, we don't want to tax profits anymore right now and make it more difficult for corporations, big and small, and the small ones are the ones I care about. We don't need to make it more difficult for small companies to hire and really help us grow out of this economic recession. We need them to be successful, and that's what's going to help us. Unfortunately, the governor is going to do everything he can to hurt those small businesses. So while he's increasing $941 million of regressive taxes that will hurt low-income Minnesotans, he's giving a $36 million tax cut to 1 million Minnesotans. That equates to $3 a month. And that's the perfect example of why his budget is not real and it's not serious. That's a talking point. That's not a tax cut. I don't think you can get a cup of coffee at Caribou Coffee for $3. And that's the reality. When people are hurting, they need real help, not $3 a month. And I could go on and on and on about the problems with this, but I think number one, the governor said it really well himself today, and I wrote down his exact quote. He said, "We use the tax code to incentivize or disincentivize behavior." What he was talking about when he said that was an increase on cigarette or vaping tax. But now think about that through the lens of all of the other taxes that he's increasing. We use the tax code to incentivize or disincentivize behavior. What is it the governor's incentivizing and disincentivizing in this budget? He's disincentivizing job growth, and he's incentivizing people not to work. And that's exactly the wrong approach at the wrong time. So I'll turn it over to Senator Rosen, and we can take some questions a little later.
Hi, Senator Rosen, Chair of Finance. And here is the budget, the governor's budget. It's taken me a while to dissect this. It's a budget that is absolutely unsustainable. It leaves us $1.029 billion in the hole, in the tails. It's full of shifts and gimmicks. And like I said, it's going to take a while to grasp what he is proposing here and the ramifications. Currently, there's $2.4 billion in the budget reserve. He drains it down to $885 million, while still spending $1.3 billion in this current biennium and $1.651 billion in the tails. So this is a problem. We have a spending problem with this governor. And that we just had the Senate File 3 heard in state government today. It's my bill that deals with a 5% cut to all agencies, excluding direct care and treatment for DHS and the veterans. And it's explicitly for administration and operating expenses. And because of COVID and the way we're doing business, this is a very realistic bill that should be implemented. And it is doable. It saves $222 million per biennium. That's pretty impressive when you have a $882 million deficit for this year. We can make a huge chunk out of that deficit with just Senate File 3. So I'm very excited to work with the House and negotiate with, of course, Representative Daudt and the Speaker and Representative Moran, the Ways and Means Chair, and negotiate these bills and negotiate a budget going forward, and then engage the governor. And that's how this process is going to work. So we're going to have conference committees, and we're going to really drill down on making sure that we can solve this budget. And I must say, we have $3.146 billion coming from the feds. How's that going to affect our budgets going forward? This is another added element to this entire equation that we'll see more going forward. But hopefully this February forecast is a positive show, much more positive than the November forecast. And I think there are some signs that show that. Let's not do anything to go backwards. Thank you.
In the budgets that the governor laid out today, he had $150 million in your development bonds, I believe, or appropriation bonds for civil unrest rebuilding in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I know that there was a hearing on a bill yesterday that would exclude civil unrest from state declared disasters. So I'm curious, is there any way that portion of the budget that you propose to get support?
I doubt it, but I really want Senator Rosen to talk about the hearing. She chaired that, and this is her bill, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, thank you for the question. That was Senate File 7. a big priority for the Senate. And the disaster account was developed for the state share in 2014 for natural disasters. The authors of those bills were explicit about that it's supposed to be a natural disaster, and it's been used for floods, snowstorms, tornadoes, high winds, and it's been very effective. And what it basically did was the governor then did not have to call us into a special session every time there was a catastrophe in Minnesota. And whenever we did that, there was always complicated special session that got very expensive, got a little pile on from other issues, and it's worked very, very well. And we just feel that the civil unrest piece should be excluded from this bill because, number one, it was decisions that were made at the executive branch and at the local level that caused that high price. And there's other ways to deal with that cost. Let's put a bill in for the $12.041 million that they're requesting for just Hennepin County for their public infrastructure cost. It's a good discussion, and we need to continue that on, but I did think I heard the $250 million they're asking on appropriation bonds for $150 million. Okay. Yeah, that should be a good discussion. Thank you.
I'll add to that, too. So that there will be a conversation about what are we going to do related to potential future riots related around the trial that's coming up in March and moving forward. Many of us don't think that the entire state should be responsible for some of the costs that Minneapolis is asking for. When Minneapolis cut 118 police officers and then they come and say they want some help from us, it creates some real dynamics that we have to work through. Basically, I believe how it would work is you'd have the Highway Patrol and the National Guard called in first to help. I think the governor has learned that you need to do that much quicker. And then it's the help that they would ask from other police forces around the entire state. That's where there is a roadblock right now. We'll try to work through that, but that's the issue we're addressing.
Senator Gazelka, is there anything you do like in the budget? There are some tax cuts. Do you like that at all?
Well, I got the actual budget the exact same time you did, so we didn't have a ton of time to look through it. Normally, we get that a little bit earlier so that we can digest it and work through it. It wasn't a surprise to me that there was a large amount of taxes. If you look back, 2 years ago, we had a large surplus, and we still had tax increases, so we knew that that was going to come again. But I think as we dissect it, there's probably some things that we're going to find that we can try to work through and work with, but it isn't about more taxes. I think that's the bottom line that we're going to avoid.
Would you like that sort of tax? Are you interested in cutting anybody's taxes?
Well, in the end, there may be some changes that we make within the tax system, and we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, that's part we're just going to have to walk through and see. I mean, certainly there could be, but it's got to balance. If we're lowering it here, the one thing I will say is we in our proposals we have not proposed a tax cut. If you notice that, and I heard the governor say we're always doing that, well, with a $1.3 billion budget shortfall, we're not proposing a tax reduction. But we also don't think that you need a tax increase when you have a shortfall. That's when you need to think about reducing spending. We haven't reduced spending in more than 10 years. It's just been growth, growth, growth. And every once in a while, you got to figure out how to tighten your belt. Families do it, businesses do it, and this really is the time that state government should do it.
Senator, Governor Walz did say he's open to legalizing sports gambling. I know you and Representative Daudt and the other legislative leaders have said no to that. Would you be open to at least considering that?
Well, for two reasons, no. One is the timing is probably the bigger issue right now. It's going to be extremely difficult to get a budget passed through when we're doing social distancing, wearing the masks. Our nonpartisan staff typically aren't here. Any major policy item that has a lot of disagreement, I don't foresee happening this year. But in addition, many of us just don't think it's the right thing to do for Minnesota. And I think I've heard all four legislative leaders say they're not interested. So I would say this year, I cannot imagine it even moving remotely towards a conversation, and we'll see about next year.
Thank you.
Yep.
If I can ask you, the governor's calling this a moral budget, and one of the things he's talking about is trying to sort of make whole all these children who've been in long-distance learning and have lost all, God knows what they've lost, you know, being on this learning all this time. And he's talking about basically free summer school for any kid in Minnesota. You talked about not wanting new policy issues. Does that fall under that? And what about trying to make whole some of these devastating consequences?
Well, and it's, some of it is the decisions that were made related to the pandemic and not the pandemic itself. And so that's why we're focused on, let's get the economy back up and running. Let's get the vaccine out so that businesses won't be forced to shut down by a governor, where kids won't be forced to not be in school by a governor. And those are the things that I feel like we can actually try to work through. I try not to use the word moral, that, you know, this decision the governor made was, you know, and use that word. I don't think we should be using that word. I think the governor's trying to do the right thing through the lens he's looking at, but so are we. And as we think about what Minnesotans need, they need to get back to the normal life they had. Kids in school, businesses running, daily lives not under the weight of this virus. And so that's where I think we can unite to move forward.
It's already happened. You know, it's already happened. The kids have already missed.
Yeah.
Aren't they owed something to try and get them back up to where they are, especially
Are you talking the schools?
schools? Yeah.
Well, the schools made the decision not to be in the classroom. The science showed that they could be in the classroom. Other states are doing it. Parochial schools are doing it. They chose, the teachers union and the governor, not to have the kids in the classroom. I think it was a huge mistake. And then you had about 10% of the families and their kids go someplace else, homeschool, parochial school, I think charter school, and now they're asking us to bail them out for that. And so I'm willing to have a conversation on anything, but I have a big problem with that when they really should have seen that kids in school was absolutely essential for their future and for their mental health, and they decided against that.
Yeah, thank you, Esme. I didn't hear the governor say that directly, but I have a big issue with somebody calling this a moral budget. The number one thing that we can do to help kids is get them in the classroom. And Senator Gazelka summed it up well when he said that the data showed that the kids could be in the classroom safely and other states were doing it safely. Unfortunately, what happened to us here in Minnesota is we have the largest achievement gap in the country. And the kids who are going to be most disproportionately affected by not being in the classroom are those low-income and minority students who are already struggling. I'm afraid what you're going to see, and this will be a great thing to watch for this session, if Democrats try to eliminate testing requirements so that we don't know how far these kids fell behind. And that to see somebody say that kids don't need to be in a classroom when the data showed that they could be in the classroom safely and call this a moral budget. The number one thing we can do is get our kids in a classroom and keep them there. And the Democratic Party in this state has stood in the way of closing the achievement gap and doing the creative things necessary that other states are doing incredibly successful to make sure that low-income and minority students are getting the education they deserve, which then gives them the tools they need to be successful in their life. And I think you're going to start to see progressive Democrats in the inner city of Minneapolis start to peel off from the teachers union this session and say enough is enough. We can't let our kids fall behind. And you know what? Private school isn't just for rich kids. It should be for any kid that needs it. And that's what we stand for.
What about summer school? What about the idea the governor put out of summer school? If that were to happen, it would probably have to happen separately ahead of a budget, which usually goes too late. Do you think there's enough interest and momentum to quickly move through some funding for summer school?
Personally, I would say that that's a local choice, and if local school districts feel that they need to put kids in summer school or want to, we certainly would let them do that. Remember that the governor's executive orders also waived the number of days that kids were required to be in school, and many kids have only had 4 days of education, whether it be in person or remote, since this started. So not only, I think it's 173 is the number of days, that's an old thing, but I think that's still the number of days that kids are required to be in school. That number is much, much less this year because the governor waived the number of days. So if there's a requirement for kids to be in school to catch up, I certainly would think that decision should be up to local schools to put the kids back in school if they want to. But the governor needs to figure out how to solve that problem since he's the one that created it.
What does this say for this session? I mean, you couldn't be further apart. And this is one of those years where you've got to come to an agreement. I mean, I can see this going on in late June.
I think we'll get done on time or near on time. I think the fact that the governor, the speaker, and myself have been through a 2-year budget 2 years ago, we found a way to do it. And we were just as divided then, but we all recognize that it's our responsibility to pass a 2-year budget that balances. So I'm optimistic. We did the police accountability bill, we did a bonding bill, we did the budget 2 years ago. These were big, complicated issues that we did get done. So I'm optimistic. I wish we weren't so far apart on these things. I think if we focused on the things we mentioned, getting kids back in school, getting businesses up and running, getting the vaccines out, if we all focus on that and pass a balanced budget, we'll be fine.
Is there a top number of how comfortable you would be pulling from rainy day funds? Is there any sort of ceiling there?
The question was, is there a top dollar amount for the rainy day fund? Well, I really want to reduce spending and combine that with the rainy day fund or the reserves, but I will use whatever reserves necessary to balance the budget over raising taxes. Yep.
I just want to really point out, in case you haven't been paying attention, this is a budget the governor put out that has huge tax increases in it. It also has deficit spending in the current biennium, and as Julie Rosen told you earlier, or Chair Rosen, it has deficit spending in the tails. So he's covering the deficit spending in the current biennium. The tax increases more than cover the deficit. The deficit spending over and above that, he's using transfers from the reserves. He said $1 billion. We think the numbers actually look much more like anywhere from 1.2 to 1.6, depending on how you do the math. But then this budget also leaves about a little over $1 billion structural deficit in the tails. There isn't anyone in the world who would say that this budget represents good policy. It's going to make for good talking points for the governor, and we're going to jab him on it. And this is a good starting point that will offer a place for us to contrast our ideas for a little bit. But at the end of the day, Republicans and Democrats need to come together, roll up our sleeves, and put in place a budget that will create the jobs and create the economic growth that will see our state recover from this pandemic. And that's the only way out of this, and the only way for us to do it is together.
The tax on cigarettes and vaping products, it looks like the vaping product one would be 95% increase on the wholesale price of an electronic delivery device. Is that something you could?
It's my understanding we already have one of the highest taxes on vaping in the country. We have one of the highest taxes on cigarettes. I think we had a huge increase a few years ago when Democrats had complete control of state government. The number one thing that I'll remind you about this issue is this is the most regressive tax that you could put in place. So when the governor says he's making people pay their fair share, this tax is taxing low-income people, period, as are many of the other taxes in his proposal. So this isn't a tax on rich people. His budget, 2/3 of his budget impacts low-income Minnesotans. So he's not doing what he's saying, or he's not telling you what he's doing. And unfortunately, I think that's just disingenuous for Minnesotans.
Well, he did exclude that particular chunk, saying this is acknowledged.
Yes, but he also said on this particular chunk, and I'll go back to the quote, we use the tax code to incentivize or disincentivize behavior. But it's not, you can't selectively choose just one part of the tax code. So everything else that he's doing, what he's doing in his budget is disincentivizing job growth. Job growth is exactly what we need to recover from this recession. There is no other way out of this. And he, in his budget, by his own admission, is disincentivizing job growth.
We got a couple questions from online, from reporters texting in. Bill Warner asks if the governor wants additional dollars for investments available through some means other than tax increases, should he agree to changes to his peacetime emergency powers, for example, making legislative approval required for continuation? Is that a potential compromise?
Would you trade that for
Yeah,
tax increases?
right. I think I heard Bill Warner saying
Additional investments.
tax increases for.
Other than through means other than tax.
So we think that the governor should give up emergency powers because it's the right thing to do for Minnesota. I don't think he should be holding that over us for moving an agenda that he wants. I think it's critical that for Minnesota, the Senate, the House, and the governor are working together as equal partners, not the governor dictating everything that we have to do. And so we're going to continue to push for that. As I said a little bit earlier, maybe within the last month, is there a place where we can agree that emergency powers should end and that that we can move forward with life? Is it 1C where 65 and over gets vaccinated? What is the point? And so we're not going to use that as the negotiating tool, which he talked about. You know, he said that if you mandate masks rather than we strongly suggest them, and then like 7 other things, that then he would get rid of the emergency powers, where that's just a non-starter.
I just had a question on timeline and process. When will we expect to see maybe an overview of the Senate GOP budget proposal similar to what we saw today from the governor? Are you expecting that would come after the February forecast, or I'm curious just when something like that would come out?
So with the process, the February forecast comes next. That's the one difficult thing that the governor has, is we get that more up-to-date information, and then we work on our budget after that. And so it will be significantly different from the governor's in that we won't have a tax increase, but then the two come together, and we've done it every 2 years, and we'll do it this time as well.
Another texting question from Brian Bax. Are there parts of the budget, perhaps the COVID business relief account, that you'll move on more quickly while the other pieces come along?
The question is, would we move on things quicker, like the COVID relief account? We'll just have to look at each piece. I have not looked in detail, and so, you know, we'll just have to play that by ear.
Where specifically would you like to see cuts in spending?
Well, if you go back to 2011, when we asked for a 5% cut across the board, we asked each of the agencies to find their savings, and they did that. At that time, we had a $5 billion shortfall, so it was much, much tougher. So that's one of the ways that we'll do it. As you heard from Senator Rosen, we wouldn't do veterans, and another one.
Direct care.
Yeah, so, but that direct care and treatment, you know, but that's how we'll work through that process. People will come into her committee and testify, and they may make a case that there's a particular area that we should do different. We're willing to listen, but we do think that our state government can be more efficient.
We could codify the governor's hiring freeze.
That's a good step.
We could implement his idea.
Yeah, literally do it. Yeah. Anything else? All right, well, you guys have a good day. Take care.